So in Learning Blade, with that framework of our missions, our central component is really our interactive online lessons. We have about 400 or more interactive mini academic lessons that students can do online. And we'll spend a little bit of time, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But beyond that, we have really built a STEM toolbox that can be a tremendous resource for teachers as you are trying to integrate STEM activities into your classroom or now into your remote classroom. So we have design thinking, where we use the 5-step process of design thinking to really solve problems that are related to the missions that you have seen. In addition, we have what we call our mission challenge or challenge projects, which are really simple project-based learning lessons for students and even parents to work on together to experience some of the STEM content. We also have 3D printing activities. You know, prior to COVID and even post, a lot of schools get 3D printers and they simply don't know what to do with them beyond building a paperweight. So we wanted to create some exercises that can be utilized with the 3D printer. You print something and then actually do something with the things that you print. Stay tuned this fall because we are doing a partnership with our 3D printing partner, FlashForge. If you don't know about them, great 3D printers that they have. We'll be creating some online lessons that they will be actually hosting with us to show you how to use a 3D printing in this environment as well. And then of course we have career videos showing kids, what it is to be actually in this career, along with our parent discussions, which we had long before COVID, which really allow parents to engage with their students in STEM conversations at home, research, and then also what I call kitchen sink experiments, things that you already have at your house. We have coding resources as well. The great coding, code.org materials are fantastic, but when the National Boy Scouts were going to use them, what they found is that they were a little bit complicated for parents to actually use, their den parents, etc. That's probably very similar for teachers who don't have a coding background. So we created some very simple step-by-step resources to use with the code.org materials so that any teacher can deliver a coding experience. And we even had some teachers telling us they were using these during the school shutdown. And then we have some origami for students as well as a reward. So Learning Blade has these online lessons, as I mentioned. And so this is kind of the framework of how our online lessons are organized for those of you that aren't familiar with that. This is our flu outbreak, very appropriate at this time, had it long before the COVID, but really a great opportunity to use this information to help kids learn what an epidemiologist does or learn about vaccines, but really in the contextual setting of academics. So each of our sort of tools and teammates, so tools are STEM technologies, teammates are STEM careers, and each of those have subjects of social studies, math, science, and English. Now, hey, people might say, why does a STEM curriculum have English and social studies? If we're really going to fill that STEM pipeline and the workforce pipeline of this country that continues to expand, we have to attract students from all different backgrounds. So just because a student is good in English does not mean they can't consider and get excited about a STEM career. We use this as an opportunity to engage and hopefully spark an interest for students in a STEM space. Even if they're good in English and social studies only, we want them to be able to see that. Each of these lessons are about 10 to 15 minutes for our Twitter generation, where things they want gratification very soon, so kids can earn their tool and teammate by completing each of these 4 lessons. So let's talk a little bit about how you might use Learning Blade for, in a remote setting. So a lot of teachers are using Zoom now or other WebEx, all GoToMeeting, all the great technologies that are out there, Teams, our Microsoft Teams as well. And so, really Learning Blade has an opportunity to set up a time for class discussion. The lessons can be utilized to talk a little bit about maybe current topics like we have here on the screen, how is a vaccine created, and getting kids to engage with the content. I think that is one of the really strong ways that Learning Blade can be used in a more type of remote setting. If you can see, we have different types of subject areas. You can talk about how the vaccine's created, how it might spread, and again, start to really engage your students in a conversation as opposed to always it being a sort of like what I'm doing today, which is a one-way street of talking. And that way you really can gain some engagement with the students. Of course, talk about, the way communication has changed. I mean, I had someone the other day, I said, can you please send me your address? And she actually sent me her mailing address. And what, of course, I was meaning was her email address. And when I messaged her back and I said, no, I want your email address, she's like, oh yeah, whoever mails a letter anymore. But I will say I'm one of those rare people that still mails a lot of thank you notes. I'm a big believer in thanking the people around you. And so frequently I send just random thank you notes to different people in my life. So I think, having an opportunity to talk about how communication has transcended over the years is a really great way to engage your students and maybe even challenge them to do a letter. I love activities where we get kids to follow up and have a sort of a call to action. Well, talking about that, definitely, even as we're doing today, if you do have questions or comments along the way, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box. I've got Kirby here that will be monitoring that for us, and we'll review some of those questions at the end. But I think, having the opportunity to use Zoom or any other type of thing and using the chat box, I think that gives you the opportunity to engage with students without it becoming very chaotic. I think it's important to keep some decorum on this, and also really highlight for our students the importance of respect when you're on the Zoom as well. So your chat room really can be used as your back channel to kind of continue to challenge the kids to engage with the content and engage with you. And again, here we go, some questions that, from the material we just showed you. How do you think the flu spreads? When was the last time you wrote a letter to a friend or family member? And again, having maybe some of those call to action. Of course, silence. Silence is golden. If we're going to do the chat box and, expect kids to pay attention and also engage with the content, we've got to be willing to have a little bit of silence. I know it's uncomfortable, particularly for people like me that love to talk, but, it's important to allow the time for students to respond. And I might have a little chat question for you too. If you have used Learning Blade, where have you used it and what have you found to be effective? So I'm going to embrace the silence for a minute. If you haven't used Learning Blade, maybe you have some ideas that already came out of what you saw today. So if you all will share in the chat box, that would be great, and I'll be quiet. We've got some answers hopefully coming in, but go ahead and do that, and you can continue to think of ways that you can have used Learning Blade or ways that you might use Learning Blade. So want to share with you some things that are happening at Learning Blade as well. If you're familiar with Learning Blade, this is kind of your teacher student demo site where you can actually go in and see the lessons. And we have added a new feature just recently, which is our student view button. Previously, our teachers could not really see the lessons from the student's perspective. And so we took that suggestion to heart, and we created a new button in your teacher login that will allow you to see that. Now, today is not really a Learning Blade training session. So if you want to do a Learning Blade training session that's specific into how to use Learning Blade, the nuts and bolts, you can certainly email us at info@learningblade.com, and I'll be reviewing that at the end, but wanted to make sure that people knew this wasn't really specific to a training in Learning Blade, but there's lots of great ways that Learning Blade can be used in this remote setting. So I don't know if people are familiar with popcorn. Maybe you can raise your virtual hand if you are, but the idea, again, of engaging students is really important during this time. So popcorn is really sort of the technique of a teacher calling on a student to maybe either read a paragraph or answer a question But then instead of the teacher continuing to call on individual students, it actually allows kids to then call on their classmates. And so again, kind of moving around the whole entire virtual classroom is a way that you can engage your students. Maybe it's reading a paragraph in the Learning Blades section, or even whatever other curriculum you're using. But it's an opportunity to use this time to kind of go around the classroom and engage students in engaging each other. So just another sort of idea on doing that. And you could go through some of the different sections in Learning Blade and have them read paragraphs, have them talk about it, etc. But it really is a fun way to engage our students. And here are some examples. Most of you are probably familiar with a flipped classroom. That is certainly a great way to use Learning Blade, where you're asking them to do the work sort of at home and come back together to discuss it, as opposed to the reverse where we discuss things and send homework home. So this is another opportunity, again, to think about ways to use Learning Blade where you're getting students to actually, finish a particular mission or lesson, or however you choose to do that, and then come back together to talk about that. Also, how can you use the career videos? Well, as you may know, within Learning Blade, we've built in some career videos that allow students to actually see a life, a day in a life, so to speak, of a different career. When they have that opportunity to do that, we do have some questions that follow on. But again, this is another opportunity to engage students in conversation, maybe through chat or through even an open classroom, where you can watch a video all together and then discuss maybe different things that you saw in that video. You may also want to even take the lesson yourself, see what the follow-on questions are, and then be prepared maybe to engage students in a variety of ways around using these career videos. And we have several different kinds. This is about welders. As I mentioned at the end, we have some questions after they watch a 2 or 3 minute video. So again, finding ways to engage students, of course, talking about our epidemiologist career video, which is certainly something that I think would be very interesting for kids to look at today. Of course, you really are, our goal in Learning Blade is to expose kids to a wide range of careers and technologies. And so what we've done here is certainly give you a list of the different careers that we cover in Learning Blade. This is very extensive. If you look at this, there are very, very few materials out there that cover this really wide range of STEM careers in a way that hopefully engages students. So we want you to also have the opportunity, maybe you have the opportunity to invite someone in one of these careers as a virtual sort of speaker in the classroom or a field trip. I know we have Nicole Ott from a company in Indiana, and she is doing some amazing work to engage career students in her community. She's an employer. She was actually an educator, went into being an employer in a STEM company, and she recognizes the value of making sure that kids are able to take field trips. Maybe the field trips are virtual now. So we want to make sure that our teachers are thinking, and again, you guys have a lot on your plate. We totally understand that. But hopefully, thinking about ways that you can uniquely engage employers and others in your community to help you. Really, they want to help. They need to be asked, and they are ready to step up to the plate to do that. I certainly know that in our own community and many across the country. So here's a little different idea for Zoom. So I had an opportunity to be part of a national webinar for women in STEM. For those of you that don't know, I'm an engineer by training, and so this is very much passion work for myself. But really what we did was we did a very cute Zoom. Normally Zoom is you have your students really logging into different Zoom classes, right? That's typically the way this is done. So instead of doing that, what we did on a webinar that I was on, we actually moved the speakers around from room to room rather than asking students to keep track of 5 different Zoom meetings that they had to have. I know some of our own employees have children that are in school and have said it's been overwhelming for their students to remember at 10 o'clock, I got to get on this Zoom. At 11 o'clock, I need to get on this Zoom. So if you're part of a 6th grade cohort or 7th or 8th grade cohort, you could get together with your other teachers and say, you know what, we're going to set up a Zoom for for this entire class, and then we're going to move from class to class rather than making our students move around. Just a different thing to think about, and I think this could be very effective if it's planned correctly. It could be very easy to make it much more engaging for our students, and they don't have to be really encumbered with remembering I've got to get on these different Zooms or different WebEx or different sort of online meetings. So just a unique idea I learned from this webinar I got on, and wanted to share that with you all as well. So of course, in all this, you know, the self-paced online learning is really elevated. Obviously, the digital divide is of concern. Equity is of concern. There's no question about that. And I'll be talking about a way we're going to help with that as well. But I think, you know, making sure that really our central component of the self-paced learning is our lessons. You know, over 100 hours of online learning is in Learning Blade. So the thing is that, you know, having the opportunity to deliver the content on demand for students is really powerful. And where you do have access to technology and the internet, you know, this is definitely a great tool for you all to use. We hear, you know, all the time, even pre-COVID, now post-COVID, you know, having the self-paced opportunity for students is really powerful. And, you know, just using Learning Blade, even 10 or 15 minutes a day, or even a week, can really impact a student's trajectory in their STEM career or their computer science career pathway. So making sure that they understand that. So it's really important that you still understand the real big value in Learning Blade is our online lessons. Besides that, you know, this is kind of what one of our mission outline looks like for the student. You know, what's great is students can also track their own progress. Most of our students are very much more familiar with online games and other things than obviously I am as an old lady. But, you know, it is important to make sure that they get some positive feedback. So we do have, you know, the point for them to learn about how many tools they've earned, how many teammates they've earned, what their mission score is. And they are actually able to even see how they have as their scorecard, how they rank against their other classmates. Not by name, so they don't see the other classmates' name, but they also can see their progress. Besides that, you know, really working in teams is still an important thing. Even in the remote setting that we're in, we have to be able to facilitate and encourage teamwork. So one of our ideas around that is maybe using some of our design thinking lessons to actually let students work as a cohort, as a team. So hopefully they have the opportunity to meet virtually or meet as a group, you know, maybe socially distant, however it's done, or maybe some schools are going back live. So, you know, making sure that we give some content to that. So for example, you know, you might be in the flu design thinking, you know, thinking about having an impact and really having important information. It's been very, very important, as we have seen during this pandemic, to make sure that students or everyone understands the impact of their actions. So, so then, you know, really looking at that, how have we been getting communicated? Certainly on TV, social media, other things, but is there a better way to do this? And one of the things we could say is that, you know, looking at that 5-step design thinking process, students can actually learn to, you know, gather inspiration, define the problem, create ideas, prototype the solution, test the solution, and then you can invite them back to present these ideas. So really having an opportunity to do that. Similarly, in our fresh food, you might want to design a campaign. You know, with us going to the grocery store less often, we want to make sure that our food stays fresh. So look at different ways. Are there ways that you can design to make sure that your fruits and vegetables stay better longer? We also have, you know, as we mentioned, our mission challenges, which do involve some simple ways to use Learning Blade content. This is our lightweight aircraft, you know, building a plane and looking at the flight patterns and other things of that as well. Our heart mission, of course, is there too, to understand the diagnosis of an actual disease and all that type of things and what equipment you need to do. And then briefly to just talk about, you know, this is all wonderful. We've told you a lot of great resources to use, but we also want to make sure you understand that, we are also focused on hearing from our clients and hearing from our students and hearing from our educators, are we making an impact? So to that end, we have partnered with Battelle, largest nonprofit research institution in the country, to really validate and look at the success that Learning Blade is having within the classrooms. We've published a couple of studies with them, but again, 71% of kids were learning about new careers. Again, can't be what you can't see. It's very powerful. We have a tremendous increase in kids saying now they're interested in a computer science career, doubling the number of kids that want to be an engineer or scientist. My favorite data is the 69% increase in students saying, what I learned in school will be useful later in life. How many of you have heard, when am I ever going to use this in the classroom, right? I mean, people always talk about that as being one of the things. We also had some independent PhD research topic that actually also compared schools that use Learning Blade and those that didn't here in Tennessee. And we again found very much similar kinds of data points, 140% more likely to now say they know what STEM workers do. So really, really exciting to see the impact that Learning Blade is having. Beyond that, we have state availability. So we have 5 statewide offerings where each of these states, Learning Blade is available free of charge to any school in those states. Again, we are primarily targeted at 5th through 9th grade. 5th grade is more gifted programs. 6th, 7th, and 8th is our sweet spot. 9th grade sometimes for RTI or remediation, it can be very useful and it can be very engaging as well. If you don't see your state up here and you're interested in finding out, we have some larger adoptions in certain states. You can email us at info@learningblade.com. So I know I gave you lots of info and all of that in our 28 minutes together, and I'm going to ask Kirby if she has some questions from the chat box.
So I've actually been fielding a lot of private questions, folks who are really interested in scheduling webinars, which is wonderful. Great. We're happy to demo the platform for any new users. Also, if you are a returning user this school year and interested in a refresher training, happy to do that as well. So just email us at info@learningblade.com. and we will work with you via email to get that scheduled. If I have inadvertently missed your question in the private chats, please let me know. But I think we're up to date on everything, Sheila.
Great. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Again, thank you to all of you that are looking at ways to teach your students and be with them and, and encourage them. Lastly, if my computer will cooperate, we just want to say you are heroes. We talk about heroes in our healthcare industry, which they definitely are, but I think teachers, educators are tremendous heroes right now. You have to really be thanked properly. I have a really good friend that is an ESL teacher, and she has described, her own personal fears and having to go back to school and interview students and, learn their English capabilities in a time where you really don't know where these students have been either. And so I think, just want to say we want everyone to stay safe. We want to support you with Learning Blade as a way to outreach to your students, a way to, be available to provide some academic content. Again, I don't think I mentioned, but every one of the Learning Blade lessons are also aligned to the state standards, and we have all 50 state standards loaded into our system. So, you can be assured that you are also providing them an opportunity to practice the academics that they very much will be potentially tested on at the end of the year. But regardless whether they're tested or not, you're really allowing students to see the impact of academics in a career, in a STEM career, and a computer science career. I also want to remind you that, Microsoft came out with a study last year or a year before maybe that actually validated that, 1 to 2 hours of career exposure changes the career path, specifically for girls. So, you don't have to do all 100 hours of Learning Blade, and rarely anyone can. So we just want to remind you to use this as an opportunity to, engage them in informational text, which we have a lot of, and also career awareness opportunities. So with that, I know we are at 9:31 or 10:31 in the East Coast. And I just want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And again, as Kirby mentioned, please email us at info@learningblade.com for some information, or to set up a webinar if you don't have Learning Blade, or to set up a training as well. And I just wish you all to stay safe, and thank you again for your time. Have a great day. Okay. We will be ending the meeting now. Thanks, everybody.